thank you, Paul, so much for joining us or having us here today.
Happy to have you.
Yeah.
Happy to have you back.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, so we're at the Bayside Historical Society, and would you tell us a little bit about what that is and where we are and what this building is?
Yeah, the building.
We're
Tell us a
sitting
little bit
in?
about the space that we're in, which is a fantastic exterior and an amazing interior as well.
Both. Well, today we're in what's known as the Officers Club. It was built in the 1880s, 1870s through the 1880s by the U.S. Army. It originally was built, we're in Fort Totten in Bayside, Queens. It was originally built by the Army to house the Army Corps of Engineers, their library and their offices.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was used as such, and it was called the Officers Club because it was a place, it was their library and where some of their offices were, but it was also a place where officers could come and have their events, their soirees, their weddings, whatever it may be. So that's that larger floor downstairs. It was used for that for a number of years, and then I think in the early 1900s, they left. They moved to another location, but the building remained. It was still used by the Army. The whole base was used by the Army. And then we later on acquired it. It's a bit of a long story, but I can tell it to you.
Sure, yeah, we're all ears.
There was a state senator, his name was Frank Padovan. He passed away a few years ago. He was state senator for a very long time, I believe 38 years, if not 40, close to 40 years. Wow. He was state senator. And he was great. He really was an advocate for neighborhoods and for people who lived here. And being in a city because it is New York City, even though it doesn't feel like it here, it's still New York City. And change and comes quickly, sometimes in cities, and big projects. And he was the kind of guy who advocated for the folks who lived here, because folks who live here, I'll tell you my story too, but folks who live here tend to work in the city, or in Brooklyn. And but they live here because it's a suburban part of New York.
Right.
And New York City I live in a house in Bayside, but New York City only has I think approximately 15% single family housing. So it's mostly a place that has multifamily to very large apartment buildings and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so Frank was the kind of guy, once again, who would advocate for this community to try and keep it a suburban community, and he did it for a long time. But he was also in the Army, and he was an engineer. So he was stationed here, I believe, in the 70s, and the building fell into disrepair. He wasn't stationed, here in this building, but he was stationed somewhere on the base here. Mm-hmm. And so he had a passion for Fort Totten, for seeing it preserved, and for saving this building. So so he worked with the Historic Society to have it landmarked, which did happen, and in 1976, I believe.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So.
One of the cool things I remember you telling us back when we met was it November, right?
I think so.
We met for the first time in November when we did our Fort Totten walk. That the building itself looks like the Army Corps of Engineers logo, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and I guess it had to have been that the logo already. Are there other buildings that are made in that way to mimic that?
I think there's another building like this somewhere in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So it's a really special building, and it looks just like if you see the Army uniform. In fact, we could look at it. I don't know if you've seen it yet. We could look at Senator Padovan's uniform.
Oh, cool.
That he wore when he was here in Fort Totten. We have it downstairs.
So maybe we can catch some
amazing.
video of that so people can check it out.
Yeah. And it has that little castle badge.
Yeah.
And it looks just like the building.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. And so the building, I mean, it has a ballroom area on the second floor. You guys host events here, correct?
Yes, yeah, we have our art show, we have our general meeting in there, we we have musical performances, a jazz brunch, pre-COVID, of course.
Right,
Right.
right.
Although some of that stuff we've done virtually. In fact, this weekend we're recording a jazz band. It's going to be rebroadcast later, but I'm going to record it in the ballroom. You know,
Nice.
and other events. So and also we have people have weddings here. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful place to be married.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is just like the perfect setting for anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you were saying earlier, before we got on camera, which I think we should talk about it a little bit, the art show you've transitioned into doing some things virtually now.
That's right. Yes, we had. This is our 20th year of having an art show.
Wow.
It's a entirely local community art show. So it's artists who live, you know, who either live or work in Bayside or the immediate neighborhoods: Whitestone, Douglaston, Little Neck, Fresh Meadows. So and every year it blows me away because you well, I see the stuff before because I'm helping to set up the exhibit, but you see these paintings and these sculptures and these people are just living out there, you know,
Yeah.
in the community,
Right.
and you always you think of an art community as what Soho used to be or Williamsburg or other neighborhoods in New York City, and they're out here too in Bayside. There's maybe less of them, but they're just living. We don't have a centralized art community here, so they're out there, and we get to put their stuff up, and people come down and pack out that room, pre-COVID again.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have live music, and we have wine and cheese, and we have a Neil Slaughter, who is an art professor and critic from CW Post. He comes every year and does incredible work. He examines every single painting. We create prizes for different categories: photography, paint, whatever, and the whole event is really nice. So, of course, this year we said we're not going to stop. We're going to still do it. So we moved it online, and it's been a huge success online. We have well over 2,000 hits the first day.
Wow.
And within a week, we had 7,000 hits on it. And normally we get 300 people who come to the show on
Yeah.
the weekend, and then we leave it up for the next 3 weeks in the ballroom, and then people will come, 2 or 3, 10 a day will come and look, and that's it. So going forward, hopefully we'll go back to that, but we're going to keep it online too because the
Yeah.
outreach is so good. And I should mention one more thing.
Yeah.
Is that it's not just local artists, it's also we partner with Bayside High School. They have a digital art program.
Yeah.
And so the kids, kids from Bayside High School from that digital art program, their teachers there will either pick the best ones or all of them. I'm not really sure how they choose, and those also get shown. And,
Oh, so cool.
And they do great. Again, sometimes you just can't believe the quality. And all this stuff is on our website, baysidehistorical.org, and it's currently there right now. I'm not sure when this gets broadcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it should be there. It'll probably be on the page in some form even after the show is over.
Yeah.
And you can look at it.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm excited to look at it myself. I think the point you made about it all being local artists is actually really exciting to me too, being someone that considers myself an artist as well,
Yes.
and always having this idea that like I have to live close to the city or I have to be like in Brooklyn where the art, like this idea that you could live, we are still very close to the city in Bayside, but it is further out, it is a little more suburban, and that there could be a community of artists anywhere.
That's right.
And that there's really great talent, like it's in all of us too, to some degree.
is,
Like
yeah.
humans can make stuff.
It is.
And
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to note too, from the perspective of this year that we've been going through, and as it goes into year 2, how
Yes.
there are these things that are going to be so transformational about this experience in a positive way, or just, I don't know if the Bayside Historical Society would have necessarily thought that online would be the way to go to continue to grow,
Yeah.
but it looks like now that maybe that's an avenue moving forward. And how many instances like that are happening in the city, in the country, in the world?
Right.
It's pretty remarkable.
No, it's definitely, something like this, a pandemic comes, every 100 years or so, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it is, you said it perfectly, it is really a transformational thing. And like any other kind of change like that's so catastrophic as insignificant, you want to make the best of it.
Yeah.
So whatever we can do here, another thing that we've done is we have this education program. It's a pretty cool program. It's for elementary school kids, and it's called Grandmother's Trunk, because we have a lot of archives. Being that Bayside was settled, well, the Matinacock people lived here prior, and then when the Europeans came in the late 1600s. So there's a bunch of stuff that's accumulated here, and in our archive. And so Grandmother's Trunk, this elementary school program, it involves our teachers coming, and they wear period costumes from 1905, and so then the kids will come in, from the bus pulls up, they come in and they're waiting outside, and they have these outfits on. The kids are looking at them, and then they show them, the way that irons were used in the past. You heat them up and put them over clothes, and it's a really fun, and they get to play this game with the sticks and the hoops where they push them
Oh
along.
yeah. What is that called? Stick and hoop.
It might
I
be.
wish I could tell you.
Right,
I'm embarrassing my people
No,
by not knowing
we'll
the
look
names.
it up.
But so they do that. If it's a nice day, they'll do it outside, or they do it in the
Right.
ballroom, and it's a great program. So again, we're stuck in this situation, so we started filming it, and
Yeah.
all of our teachers did it,
Oh, cool.
and they did a great job, and it's
Amazing.
also available online. So we're doing whatever we can to continue, because we don't want to shirk our responsibility and our mission. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you have this whole archive here too. We got to see on our way in something new that's being added to the archive, which is really exciting.
right.
Which maybe you could tell us a little bit more about. And then I also am curious, because this special thing that I'm not mentioning, we didn't want to touch it, of course. And I am curious how you, just in general, deal with these really old
Right.
items. I know I've been to the archive area and the conservation area at the Met and seen all the gloves and all these
yeah.
things. And I'm just curious how you handle old
Right.
items here.
I could tell you, yes. Well, I don't handle them in the first place.
Step one, don't give them to me.
Don't give them to me. No, we have a full-time archivist here, Harvey. He's great. He's a Queens College graduate. He lives locally too, and he's a professional. He has a degree in whatever it's called, as archivist degree, and he's great. He takes the items, he puts his gloves on and whatever other materials he needs to wear to make sure it's safe, and he only he's allowed to touch the items, and depending on their how delicate they are, and he'll go through them, and he'll put them into the archive, and whatever it is that they do, he does it really well for us, and we've had other archivists over the years, and so stuff accumulates over time. Some of it's like, what do you accept and not accept? Because people will send you newspapers, and newspapers are great, but they don't have so sometimes it's like, what do we accept and not accept, and because what's of value to the archive, and what's so those are choices that he'll make as well. But so it's good, because the more that we can put together, the better picture we can give to the future of what life was like before us and during, and
Right.
And so, you go on.
Oh, and I was just gonna that the stuff that we saw earlier today when we first walked in was a very old Bible.
Yeah.
Right, and two
Right.
marriage certificates. So
Yes.
those, I guess, came in, and then they're waiting for the archivist to
Yes.
take a look and page through it himself
right.
and move it downstairs, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
that Bible looked like it had actual holy power. Like you could hold it up and lasers would shoot out or something. Yeah.
amazing.
Totally. Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I just about as much as you guys know at this point, because I walked in right before you got here and I saw it. I was like, Laura, our executive director,
Yeah.
what's that? She goes, oh, that was just given to us by a member of the public, and it's a Bible, and there's these two marriage certificates, and one's from 1890s and one's from 1860s, and the Bible is this huge Bible, as you saw, with the clasp on it, and so that's kind of why. I mean, I'm a volunteer. I'm the president of the organization, but it's a nonprofit, and I'm a volunteer. So why would you do this stuff? Those moments,
Right.
just to see those things and get to be one of the first people to lay eyes on it. It's not. It's just it's why you want to serve the community, because the rewards like that are just really great.
Absolutely. And how frequently would you say that you receive donations? Maybe not necessarily the aha moments, but
Right.
like with what regularity are things coming in?
Yeah, I mean, every month something comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. Really amazing stuff, not as often, but it's pretty regular. I think people out in the community know us. We're a little separate because we're in Fort Totten, which for people who've been here for years, they know you can't cross the gate. But you can. It's not.
Right,
It's no longer an army base. I mean, there is an army base that they're actually to the south of us. It's the 77th. It's a reserve unit. They're an active reserve unit. But for years you couldn't come in here. But for a few decades now you can, because it's a city park. And so again, we're up here and we're not in the town. We're not in the village. Bell Boulevard being our main street. So, and I wish that we would have bought. There was a Bell House on the corner of 38th and Bell. There's two of them.
Yeah.
And they were knocked down in the 60s. I was born in the 60s, so I couldn't help.
You weren't gonna be able to buy
But
that.
if they were around now, there's no way I'd let them get knocked down. It's been said that we were going to buy one of them or have it donated to us or something like that, and it didn't happen.
Wow.
And it's a shame, because as much as I love this building, and I feel we're blessed to have it, it's a large building and it's a lot to maintain, and that's expensive.
Yeah.
And being in the town would have been a little bit, our mission would have been a little smaller maybe, but it would have had more of the public coming in and out.
Sure.
Great.
But we're here, and that's where we wound up, and it's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
And what's a little bit of now that we're here with the Bayside Historical Society in general, like when did it start? What's kind of the ramp up to today?
Yes, it started in 1964.
Okay.
Wow.
Right. And I always remember that because I was born in 1965, so I never, it's just a year older than me.
Right.
And it started off small. It was founded by Joseph Brown. He was a really intelligent and kind of forward-looking kind of man who had a lot of passion for the community and wanted to save. There's a cemetery. We can actually talk about this maybe in a moment.
Yeah.
In Lawrence Cemetery in town, and he worked to get it landmarked, which is a very important thing. This building is landmarked. We're in a landmark district here, Fort Totten Historic District. But he had a lot of passion for it, and he set us on the right path. And then it just, over the years, it stuck around and it got a little bigger. And then when we got this building, it kind of took off even further from there.
Yeah. And this might be a little bit outside your knowledge scope, but I'm just thinking about it right now. Is landmarking as a concept, was that relatively new at that time, or had that already existed for a while?
No, it was actually relatively new, because I believe landmarking began with the destruction of Pennsylvania Station.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
So, and you guys saw that it was a Beaux Arts building, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful building. And that got knocked down, and I believe it was Jackie Kennedy became the spokesperson for it. It was other people, but she was just this famous person who had a passion for it as well.
Yeah.
And they formed the LPC, the Landmark Preservation Commission, in the 60s, and one of the first buildings landmarked, I don't know everything about it, unfortunately, but I believe Grand Central.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, interesting.
So, in Empire State Building and other buildings, and so the Lawrence Cemetery was landmarked in 1867.
1967.
Oh, God, sorry. 1967. and this building in 1974.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Well, I never knew that there was actually a good thing to come out of the Penn Station demolition, but
Yes.
apparently that's it.
Yeah.
People were heartbroken over it because it was this incredible building, and I guess they're trying to bring some of that back now.
Yeah.
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 I know you look at Penn Station now, though, and you're like, whoa.
There's so many contrasts in New York. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, do you interface with other historical societies around the 5 boroughs at all? Like, is there any type of networking that happens?
That's a good question. Occasionally with Queens Historical Society, we have there's a guy there, Jason Antos, a really great historian. He was on our board for a while. So occasionally we do, not that much. We should do it more.
Yeah.
We really should. There's the Brooklyn Historical Society, there's the New York Historical Society, but we're this really small, local, little thing.
Well,
Yeah.
something that's interesting is you just named 3 kind of like borough level historical
Yes.
societies. Are there other ones, or is Bayside more uncommon than one might think?
More uncommon.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, more uncommon. I'm sure there's other ones. Even when you travel in New York or across the country, you find them here and there.
Yeah.
But they tend to serve a very local. I remember there's one in New Paltz because I visited this Huguenot cemetery in New Paltz.
Yeah.
Go to that if you ever get a chance.
Okay.
And so the Historic Society gave a little tour of the cemetery,
Yeah.
which was great because the Huguenots are this French. I believe they're from France.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Christians who came here and settled. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting to create a little network because I feel like you probably all have information that you could share with each other, or like even when something comes in, like snap a picture and send it out to your other historical society friends, like, hey, do you know what this is? Or is this...
Do you want this newspaper? 'Cause we don't need it.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching the video. If you liked it, please give us a like so that it can be spread around by the algorithms that run our lives.
Yes, please do. And if you haven't already, you can also subscribe to hear more from us in the future.
Thanks, bye.